Hi, I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. If you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you'd already know that the title of tonight's show is a very long one. And the title is A Deep Dive Beneath the Surface. And that is because we're going to be talking about two different ways of understanding people that the ancient wise men set up. And the first way that we're going to be talking about is where, on the surface everything looks beautiful, because it simply means that there are planets in the same elements. There are 4 elements in Western astrology: fire, air, earth, and water. And when there are planets in these different elements, and they're trining each other, that is very harmonious, and things work out really well. So we're going to take a look at how planets react when they're in these 4 elements. And that will give us a surface evaluation of what's going on today and for the coming week. And then we're going to look at the other way that the ancient wise men set up to take a look at the character traits of someone. And so instead of planets that are all in the same element being very harmonious, in the 3 different types of character traits, which are cardinal, fixed, and mutable, none of the planets are in the same element. And so that can generate a little tension. But it is another way of trying to understand the character traits or the personalities of people. And so we're going to look at both ways. One of them is sort of a surface way, where all the planets are trining each other, and that's really true for today. And then the other is a sort of a deep dive beneath the surface, and looking at those same planets, but looking at them according to character traits, and the picture is very different. And so it's important for you to realize that you can't go by just one thing. You've got to have other things to consider too. So today, it may be that you can be walking along in a beautiful summer day, and you can be feeling that on the surface things are looking pretty good. And you would be right about that. For instance, in the water signs, there are 3 planets, all in the same element, water, and they're all trining each other, which is wonderful because they're supporting each other. And that is occurring because the Sun and Venus, the planet of love, are in Cancer today, and they are trining Pluto, which is the ruler of Pisces, and Pluto is retrograde. Well, those 3 planets are also trining the sign of Scorpio, which is a fixed financial sign and generally indicates money coming in from other sources. So, on the surface, all of that is looking pretty good because of these harmonious aspects among these planets. And then among the earth signs, there's another 3 planets that are all trining each other. So this is going on today in the heavens. And that is because Mars and Uranus in Taurus, a fixed financial sign, are trining Pluto, which is retrograde in Capricorn. And together those 3 planets are also trining the sign of Virgo. And Virgo rules banking and accounting and details, being very organized and finishing things. And so this is a time when there can be quite a few people, in light of the economic problems that a lot of people are facing now due to high inflation and high debt. There can be a lot of people around now who are getting together. These could be business leaders, these could be just your co-workers, these could be policy makers, But they, or bankers, they are trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to make it through these sort of tough economic times? Particularly when our money is becoming less and less valuable. And so there will be a lot of talk about that. But it looks like it'll be harmonious. It looks like people are willing to get together and sort of talk about their problems. They may also be doing quite a bit of planning or thinking about downsizing. Because you can't make it through bad times if you don't cut costs. And so that could be, those could be fruitful discussions they're having right now. And then, among the fire signs, there are another 3 planets that are all trining each other today. We haven't had too many planets in fire signs, but now we have Mercury in Leo, and it is trining both Jupiter and the Moon today at the 29th degree of fate and in Aries. So those 3 planets, the Mercury in Leo and the Moon and Jupiter in Aries, are both trining the sign of Sagittarius. Well, Aries rules new beginnings. And so there could be a lot of talk about getting a new beginning underway. And it can't be a beginning that is somehow connected to a gamble. Leo rules gambling. A gamble. And that gamble can either be in our near vicinity or it could be in a country overseas. But it could involve a gamble as well as trying to get a new project off the ground. Or at least trying to plan for that. Or maybe there's already been a plan for a new beginning, but now they have to trim it a little bit. You know, that idea of downsizing a little bit. In other words, maybe they can't afford the whole thing, but they could afford part of it. And so that might work out as well. And then there's 1 planet. So we've discussed 9 planets. 3 in the water signs, 3 in the earth signs, and 3 in the fire signs. And then the 1 planet that's left is Saturn, and Saturn is in an air sign. But there aren't any other planets in the air signs. So Saturn is retrograde or going backward, and it's having to cast a little bit of doubt on future plans. And so that can be a little hard to live with at the moment. So on the whole, though, you can see that things on the surface are looking pretty good. And that's great. So now we're going to take the same 10 planets and we're going to look at their character traits. And remember, the difference is that the planets in the same elements were harmoniously trining each other. But the planets that deal with these character traits, none of them are in the same element. Okay, so actually they're not getting along, even within their character designation. So the first one, and we're still talking about the same 10 planets up there today, the first designation is called the cardinal signs. Cardinal signs are the 4 cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And these cardinal signs are a little bit quiet. They know what's right and wrong. They don't need to argue with anybody. They stand behind their beliefs. They're not really fixed, but in fact, they don't even feel they need to actually talk about their beliefs unless they're threatened. And then they'll stand up for them. And so what we have today of the 10 planets is that 5 of them are only in the cardinal signs, which is too bad because they are all harshly opposing and squaring each other. Now last week we had 5 in the cardinal signs as well, under that sort of tough full moon in Capricorn that we had. And this week we still have 5, but one of them has moved on. And so what we have as we have the Sun and Venus in Cancer, and it is opposing, those two are opposed, and that's a water sign, and they are opposing Pluto in Capricorn, which is an earth sign. And these 3 planets are all being squared by both the moon and Jupiter in Aries, a fire sign. So you see, they're not in the same element, so they're not getting along, and they're squaring and opposing each other. And they stand behind their beliefs. And so, what would the result of that be? Well, it could be that there is the possibility of a somewhat deadly confrontation of one sort or another. I mean, it wouldn't have to be between you and your neighbor, but it might be between neighboring countries or companies that are very competitive. But it could be a deadly confrontation. Or what it could be, since it involves the sign of Aries, remember where the moon and Jupiter are, and these other planets are squaring those Aries planets, it could be that there is almost a destruction of a new beginning. That the new beginning doesn't get off the ground at all. And so that's a possibility as well. So you see, there's a difference between the surface and how things look on the surface and how things look underneath the surface. It's not the same picture. And then there are another 4 planets only in the fixed signs. And these planets aren't getting along either, because fixed signs don't budge. No matter how much you talk to them, no matter how much you try to persuade them about anything, they are not listening. They are not going to do it any other way but the way that's right for them. Now you could say to yourself, oh, who wants to be around people like that? Well, stop and think a minute. If you were a person that was caught out in traffic, or you're an unsuspecting victim of gang warfare going on around you, and it looks like you're in big trouble and there's no way out. If the person next to you happens to be a fixed sign, guess what? You're going to be able to get out of that, because fixed signs don't quit. And so they do not consider anything except survival. And they do it. And in a situation like that, they could save your life. And that's important. So, okay, you're never going to be able to get them to change their minds. On the other hand, they can help you survive better than you can. So you have to sort of weigh and balance these things. The 4 planets in the fixed signs are that Mercury, which is in Leo, and it is opposing Saturn in Aquarius, and Leo is a fire sign, Aquarius is an air sign, and that Saturn is retrograde. And so somebody's going to have to change their mind about something. It's Mercury that's getting opposed by that Saturn. And then those 2 planets are all being squared by Mars and Uranus in Taurus, a fixed earth sign and a financial sign. And so there is the possibility, since these are fixed signs, and there's 4 planets that are not getting along and they're in different elements, I would say there is a possibility of a battle royale about money. That somewhere beneath the surface or behind the scenes, there's a big fight about money going on. And it's sort of hitting a brick wall, but it isn't stopping. And so, it's one of these cases where everybody feels they're right, but the real strength of these 4 planets in a harsh T-cross in fixed signs is that 3 of them are malefic planets and will remain in their positions until August 20th. And that is the Mars and Uranus in Taurus, and Saturn in Aquarius is squaring them. It really would set up a battle royale about money. And it does not look like it's going to be resolved at the moment. So I think what's going to happen is that somebody's going to have to part with some money. Whether they, it could be a situation where one person needs the money more than the other person. So they'll have to settle for what they can get because they need it. The other person could sit and wait it out. But one person can't do that, and another one can. And so I think this battle royale is going to end later, and it's sort of going to have to be settled. But it could be much later if the person who has the money wants to delay it for a long time. They can afford to. The other person cannot. Or it's a company, or it's a country, whatever. Okay, and then that's 9 planets right there. The 5 that are in the cardinal signs and the 4 that are in the fixed signs. That leaves 1 planet left, and it is a mutable planet, because that's the 3rd character trait. Mutable signs are very tolerant. They are happy to consider another person's point of view. It doesn't mean that they're always going to change their mind, but they like learning new things. And even if they are in a discussion where they know a lot about one side of the argument, they're willing to listen to the other side just to learn something new. And so they're very tolerant in that way. But there's only 1 planet there in the mutable signs, and that is Neptune, which is in Pisces. It's the ruler of the sign. It's very strong, but it's retrograde. And so what I think that means is that there will be a gentle call for help, and it will not be answered. And that's going to be a shame. The reason it won't be answered is because there's too much clamor going around by greedy people who are obsessed with money or power right now. And so the gentle voice that's calling for help will not be heard. That's pretty sad. Okay. I just wanted to let you know that there's different ways or different things, 2 completely different ways of looking at the same planets and trying to get a fuller picture of what's going on. So that's why these planets that are trining each other in the same element do look like on the surface everything's going fine. But if you dive down deep, you're going to be down among the dark weeds, and you could find out a lot of terrible things because they're there. And the problem is, it depends on if you can face that or not. And there is the possibility that if you dive beneath the surface, I would say that it's a cesspool down there, and don't do that. I don't mean that you should kid yourself about everything looking beautiful right now, but there are good planets in trine to each other. It's just that there are sort of the ugly side of some people if you dive down deep. And you've got to have a strong stomach to view that. So I would suggest that you stay with the surface if you can. Okay, what does it mean to all 12 of the sun signs? Well, Aries, for you this is a time, I think, that you are very excited about a new start. The moon and Jupiter are both in your sign, and so you can be optimistic about getting a new start underway. And Mercury in Leo is trining the two planets in your sign. So, I mean, your sign does have support for Mercury. And those three planets are trining the sign of Sagittarius as well. If you were planning a long-distance trip, your plans would go pretty smoothly, Aries, which would be very nice. But the problem is that yours is a cardinal sign. And there are 5 planets in cardinal signs, all squaring and opposing each other. And that's where your sign is taking a hit, because the Sun and Venus in Cancer are definitely squaring Jupiter and the Moon in your sign, and the Moon rules Cancer, so it's not in too good of a spot, because it's squaring the sign it rules. And then Pluto in Capricorn is also squaring the Moon and Jupiter in your sign. I think, Aries, that you can make plans to get a new beginning underway, but there is also a strong possibility that there will be some downsizing to your plans because the budget gets cut a little bit. And that is something that business leaders are talking about and deciding about right now, because they got to get through the rest of the year and the winter. And so don't be disappointed, Aries, if you can't get a new beginning off the ground right now. There really does have to be indications that better economic times are ahead, and we have not seen that. It's like every month inflation gets worse, not better. And so that's hurting a lot of people right now. And in a way, it's almost better if a new beginning doesn't get off the ground right now, Aries, because even though you're filled with ambition and all ready to go, it could cost you an arm and a leg right now. Whereas if you just even waited till next year, you might get everything at a little better price. So you might want to consider that. Okay, what does it mean to a Taurus? Well, Taurus, this is a time, Taurus, when you can sort of feel that you're in the driver's seat. And the reason why is that you must have your heavy-duty armor on. And that can be because you have Mars and you have Uranus, both malefic planets, in your sign, and they are they're starting to conjunct, and by the end of the month, which is coming right up, they will conjunct, and then we're going to get some really bad economic news. And so you could feel, well, I've got to really work harder, or I've got to make some tough choices here. And I think you're absolutely right about that, Taurus. And the reason why is that Saturn in Aquarius is squaring the two planets in your sign. But also, Mercury in Leo is squaring the two planets in your sign too. And so, in a way, you are tough enough to take on whatever you need to do, Taurus. But the problem is, I don't think that you can win. And so how much energy do you want to put into something right now if it only came out to be a draw, or if you lost? The aspects do not indicate you could win. because these three malefic planets are very punitive, and they're in fixed signs. I mean, nothing's going to change. And so I think you need to decide for yourself, very quietly, even by yourself, what you want to do with your money. And, you know, take charge of that, because you can do that. And I think that the less you say, the better off you'll be. In other words, through the tumultuous times economically that we're looking at for the greater part of this year, if you're carefully handling your own funds and being real quiet about it, I think you could sort of squeak through without anybody knowing what's going on. And in a way that would offer you a lot of protection, Taurus. Because in bad times there's a lot of crooks around. And you know, you just want to look like all you're doing is getting up and going to work and coming home again. But what you really need to do is handle that money yourself and be real quiet about it, so you don't draw attention to yourself in any way. If you were going to buy something new and grand and glorious, you might want to think twice about that if it draws too much attention to you. Because the crooks are looking for whatever they can steal. And so be cautious if you can. Okay, what does it mean to a Gemini? Gemini. Well, Gemini, there aren't very many planets in the air signs anymore. Ooh, and that is because there's just one. It is Saturn, which is retrograde in Aquarius. Now, Saturn has been in Aquarius for a couple of years, and the whole time that it's been there, since Aquarius is a fixed sign, it's an indication, since Aquarius rules the future, that there have been postponements or cancellations or drawbacks or delays about the future, your future plans. And there isn't any reinforcement at all now. I mean, Saturn is trining your sun, but there isn't anything in your sun sign. And so, Gemini, believe it or not, this is the calm before the storm. And the reason why is that the three malefic planets, the two in Taurus, which are right behind your sun sign, and then Saturn in Aquarius, which is trining your sun, are going to stay locked in that position that can be quite harmful to people financially until August 20th. And then one planet moves on, and it is Mars. And on August 20th, Mars will move into your sign, Gemini, and it does not leave until March of 2023. That's why I'm saying now is the calm before the storm. And so it would be a good idea if all the things that you were going to do someday are something that you could line up and take care of and sort of check off now. Because by August 20th, you're going to be way too busy. This fall, you're going to be horribly busy. And you could say, well, I'm not planning on that. You may not be, but remember that business leaders are making changes because they've got to get through an economy that is in trouble. And it's not just our economy, it's the world economy. So try to handle whatever personal projects or things that you need to do now, Gemini, because you got to be ready to do a lot more, and that's in the public eye. Your sign rules the public. From August 20th clear until next March. So I wish you the best of luck. And if there have been some things that you've been putting off, then you should do them now, this summer. It might be the last chance you get to sort of wrap a few things up. and things that you've been wanting to do or meaning to do. And that's what you should be doing now, Gemini. So I hope you give that a try. Okay, what does it mean to a Cancer? Well, Cancer, this is a time when I would say that on the one hand, you can be very sympathetic and thinking of home and family and endings. Your sign rules endings. And they generally work out really well because you think them out thoroughly before you do them. And you have a way of handling an ending that sort of makes everybody happy, even though it's an ending. It makes the people that are ending happy to go on. And it makes you happy to wave goodbye to them. And so you know how to do that, Cancer. That's a gift that Cancers have. Well, the Sun and Venus are in your sign now. And, gee, you couldn't ask for two nicer planets than that. And so it can make you very charming, Cancer, and well-liked by a lot of people. It can also help you get in touch with contacts behind the scenes that can help you solve a mystery or can help you solve a problem that has really got to be solved. It's got to be ended. And the reason why, if it isn't ended, it's going to get worse. It's going to grow and grow and grow and embarrass you to death. And it's got to end. And this could happen at work because Pluto in Capricorn is opposing the Sun and Venus in your sign, and Jupiter and the Moon today, your own ruler, are in Aries, and they are squaring the two planets in your sign. There's 5 planets in cardinal signs. And remember, that can indicate a real destruction of a new beginning, or some sort of real confrontation that is ongoing. I mean, it's not a new confrontation, it's one that's ongoing. And you should take advantage of the fact that you have Venus in your sign. You can figure out the nicest way to solve some problems right now, and so you ought to do it, because Venus is going to move on. And then, you know, what good is that? Mars is going to go into Gemini, it'll stay there till next March, and then it'll come into your sign. You really can't afford to wait, because you don't want, I mean, Mars in your sign isn't going to do you any good. So you got to get things solved now, Cancer. And you really have a gift for knowing how to end something well. So I hope you do it. What does it mean to a Leo? Well, Leo, this is a time when I think that as much as you want to make a new beginning right now, Leo, because the Moon and Jupiter in Aries are trining Mercury in your sign. So there's you could be talking to people and making plans and getting very, very excited about a new project. And on the surface, all of that looks great. I mean, it's like, you know, they say some things look real good on paper. Well, all right, this could look really good on paper, Leo. But is it going to fly? Is it affordable? The answer to that is no. And so I'm not so certain that it's going to get off the ground. There can be the destruction of a new beginning. Now, it could be because budgets have to be downsized, but it could also be that there's a whole lot of enthusiasm, but not much else. In other words, not a lot of solid effort or a lot of prep work that would have to be done. before something new got underway. So that's why I'm thinking possibly it won't. As far as the money goes, you really won't have as much as you know you need. You won't. And the reason why is that your sign, Leo, is being opposed by Saturn in Aquarius and squared by Mars and Uranus in Taurus. And those are the three malefic planets. And by the end of this month, which is just 10 days from now, there's going to be really bad financial news. And that bad financial news might be why your new beginning doesn't make it. No, it might make it next year, but this year I don't think so. You could say, well, the money's there. But remember, I told you it takes a whole lot more than money to get something underway. You know, it really takes somebody who's real well organized and has some sort of connections and is a consistent worker. Not somebody who's going to talk excitedly about something and then just not do anything about it. You don't need anybody like that. So I think that if you could maybe think about planning your new beginning and moving that deadline out till next spring, it might be better for you. I think that would work. Okay, what does it mean to a Virgo? Well, Virgo, this is a time, Virgo, when, remember I said that on the surface, with three planets in the earth signs, all trining your sun, that would be Pluto in Capricorn and Mars and Uranus in Taurus, trining your sun. There is an indication that people that are handling property or making investments, either long-term investments or some sort of investment that is maybe a little more conservative, in other words, a good place to hold your money or have your money held, that can work out pretty well for you, oddly enough, Virgo, because the planets in Taurus, which are malefic planets and are going to hurt a lot of people, including our economy, are actually trining your sun. And so I think that the effect of that will be that there can be some people who are going to want to push you to use your money somewhat for their benefit. They'll say, oh, you could earn a lot more if you just invested over here. Well, don't listen to that, Virgo. You have to be playing it safe. Everybody has to play it safe with money, particularly by the end of this month. And so, with Pluto trining in Capricorn, trining your sun, you can be careful and economical and thorough and really look at the figures and everything else, which your sign rules accounting. You're good at that. But you also have to not be too trusting. You have to check and make sure that everything you're being billed for is actually legitimate, not an add-on that you didn't okay. You just need to be more careful about everything, Virgo, particularly about your money. And just like Taurus, you should be real quiet about what you're doing. Just don't bring up the subject of money with anybody. And when they want to bring it up with you, just tell them, you're late for the dentist, and off you go. Because you really have to safeguard your money right now, if you can. Okay, what does it mean to a Libra? Well, Libra, yours is a cardinal sign. And there are 5 planets in cardinal signs all squaring and opposing each other. And that simply means, Libra, that there's a whole lot of other people that have ideas about what they want to do. And they don't particularly care what your ideas are. They just want to do what they want to do. They want to do their thing. And there's only one planet in an air sign right now. And it is Saturn in Aquarius, but it is trining your sun. And that means that somebody older or somebody that you've known a long time and that you trust is able to back you up if you should need it. But what they really want is, I think they want to see that you are being real practical yourself, and that that you've really got your act together. You know what you're doing. You're not overspending. You just got both feet on the ground, because that's Saturn that's trying your sun, and Saturn is a planet that it represents delay, but it also represents perseverance and rewards earned the hard way over a long period of time. So if there is somebody in your life that you either have known for a long time or you knew long ago and they come back into your life, then I would say, Libra, it was meant to be. And then it'll work out fine. Just fine. So don't worry about it. They're there because they care about you and you can trust them. So, that's pretty good. Okay, what does it mean to a Scorpio? Well, Scorpio, this is a time, since yours is a fixed sign, when you might be a little tempted, Scorpio, to knock heads with anybody who is disagreeing with what you want to do. So that could happen because there are 4 planets in the fixed sign, which is your sign is a fixed sign, and they all square and oppose each other. But on the surface, things are looking pretty good for you because the Sun and Venus are in Cancer, trining Neptune in Pisces, and together those 3 planets are trining your Sun. And so I think that there is a little greater understanding going on among you and your friends or your co-worker or your family, or even after you find out the truth about something, sort of the ugly truth, but the truth about something behind the scenes, there will be greater understanding about that too. And so, so something, it's not that you have to clear the air, it's that the air gets cleared. And there you are. Sooner or later, you knew it would get cleared up, and it does. The air gets cleared. Okay, and so where does that leave you, Scorpio? It leaves you with the opportunity, once again, in a very quiet way, to do what you want. I mean, the Sun and Venus in Cancer are trining your Sun. That means if you wanted to do anything at home, if you wanted to buy a home, sell a home, remodel a home, you could do all that. You'd love it, and it would work out just fine. It can also be that you have a better understanding with some of your family members and friends. And so this may be a period of time when you feel like being a little quieter. And that's fine. A Scorpio is going to survive no matter what. Okay, so that's not even a challenge. It's a given. And so you don't really have to be in survival mode all the time, because you know you're going to survive. And so maybe you can pull back a little bit and you can relax in a way that you haven't been able to do for quite a while, and you can just sort of calm down and say, okay, what can I do that's simple? Well, that would be very relaxing if you could find something simple to do, Scorpio. And it's probably be around home or with a family member. Or it can be that there's something behind the scenes, that the record gets set straight and that clears up, and that's good too. So you could start to turn a page. You know, you don't have to get stuck on the same sad tale of woe. You can turn a page and go on. But it'd be better if you did it real quietly. That way I think you can enjoy it more. Okay, what does it mean to a Sagittarius? Well, Sagittarius, this is a time, I think, Sagittarius, when, you know, things on the surface can be looking pretty good for you. And the reason why is because Mercury in Leo is trining your sun, and so today are Jupiter and the moon at the 29th degree of fate in Aries. Okay, so that's 3 planets in the fire signs, and we haven't had very many planets in fire signs. But now all 3 of them are trining your sun, Sagittarius, which is great. So, one thing that you could definitely hear about right now is you could hear from some of your friends about a gamble that they want to take. Maybe they want you to put in a little money so that you can take the gamble too. Don't do that, Sagittarius. You might lose your shirt. On the other hand, if you were around people that wanted to take a trip and it would be something enjoyable that you'd really like and you can afford it, then why don't you just go ahead and do it? So what I'm saying is, this is a better time for you to stick to what looks good on the surface. I mean, there really is a lot of support in fire signs right now. And so, go ahead and just enjoy some summer fun, Sagittarius. You may as well, because this is a time when it's like by the end of the month, the whole world is going to be in limbo. I mean, we'll get some bad financial news, and for some people they'll say, oh, I knew that all along. Well, it's still bad news, not good news. And so, Sagittarius, if you get a chance to sort of relax right now, and you can afford it, and it's just a lot of fun or a little bit of fun, why don't you go ahead and do it? It will be very refreshing for you. And it might just sort of clear out your mind. Some people can think too much. I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? But they really can. They can kind of burn their brain up a little bit, dwelling on something so much that whatever they're dwelling on changes perspective. And they don't see it the way it really is, because they're dwelling on it so much. And you have a fine mind, Sagittarius, but you might be prone to do that. And so what I'm saying is, whatever you're worried about, forget it and go have some fun. And you might actually come back refreshed and able to think even better. Okay, what does it mean to a Capricorn? Well, Capricorn, this is a time which is similar to last week, in that there were 5 planets in a harsh T-cross last week in the Cardinal signs, and there are still 5 planets there this week. The moon has moved on. Last week there was a full moon in your sign. Well, now that moon has moved up to Aries, but it's one of the 5 that are squaring and opposing each other. And so, if you thought your troubles were over, Capricorn, I would say that they're definitely on the mend, in one way or another, but not over. And the reason why is that sometimes it just takes time. You just have to trust that time will work something out. Now, Capricorn rules time, because its ruler is Saturn, and that's what Saturn rules. And so I think you understand that better than most people, Capricorn. If you just give something some breathing space, some time, that things will sort of work out better for you. It's not that you have to do anything. It's not that you have to worry. It's not that you have to get scared. Nothing. Just give something a little more time. And so, if you have a hobby, Capricorn, this is a very good time for you to develop your hobby a little bit more, because most people have hobbies that are relaxing for them. And I think that's what you need to do, is just relax a little bit. Get back to doing something that you love to do anyway. And so you may as well use the summertime to do it in. That way, you know, you're passing time and it's making your heart happy because you're doing something you love. And I think that you'll enjoy that. And might even bring a smile to your face. It might even make you laugh. And they say two things. Laughter is the best medicine, and they say sleep is the best medicine. Believe me, that's true for both of those. So I hope that you give that a try, Capricorn. Okay, what does it mean to an Aquarian? Well, Aquarius, yours is a fixed sign. And there aren't any other planets in the air sign, so there's no support for your sign, which you have Saturn in. And Saturn is retrograde, meaning that your future plans, Aquarius, are sort of on hold. Now, I don't think they're on hold because of you. I think they're on hold because something possibly should have been wrapped up before, and now it's got to be wrapped up, and still it isn't getting done. And so what can you do? I would say that you should just mark a date on your calendar of when you should be getting some results back on something. And when that day comes, if you don't have the results, that is when you got to go into action. But if by that time you do have results that you can live with, then that's good. It means all you had to do was sort of let things be resolved. In the summertime, if you are waiting on employees in government agencies or large corporations to get the job done, you could be waiting a long time. And the reason why is they all like to go on summer vacations too, and so they get a little short-staffed. And that's why some things are not done quite on time, the way they should be. But Aquarius, that's why I say, just set a reasonable deadline for when something should be wrapped up. And then if it isn't, you know who to contact, and you might want to contact them either every day or every other day until they finally get their act together. And so I think that would work out. On the other hand, you know, if you do sort of prod them a little bit, you might get your problem solved a lot sooner than other people. So give that a try. Okay, what does it mean to a Pisces? Well, Pisces, remember I said that there are 3 types of characters, and they are people who have planets in cardinal signs, fixed signs, and mutable signs. And then oddly enough, now, there's only one planet in a mutable sign, and it's Neptune in your sign, Pisces. And what it means is that although you are open to other people's ideas, I think that this is a time when, since your sign is Neptune is retrograde, it's an indication that something you thought was sort of solidified, or something you thought was sort of in the bag, or you really were counting on it, is, you better check that again, Pisces. You may just need a further extension of time for something. Well, that's not so hard. You could ask for that. Or it can be that there was a little more to the story behind the scenes than you realized, and you may be slowly finding out the truth about something behind the scenes. And you could almost be figuring that, oops, I didn't think that this was such a bad problem, but now I'm beginning to see that it is. What should I do? And Pisces, I would advise you to keep collecting information, but not to tell anybody that you're doing that. You just need to have the facts sort of numbered and written down, and see what adds up, either 3 or 6 months from now. And you know, be meticulous in your notes, because maybe in those notes there's a story that you didn't realize was there. And that's why you have to be a little bit more thorough in understanding what's going on behind the scenes. And if you just take notes in a diary or in a notebook, something like that, then you're going to, that real true story is going to come out somehow in the next few months, and that's going to do you a lot of good. There's a new moon in Scorpio coming up in October, near the end of October, and it will trine your sun. You'll have the answer by then. And so I think you need to be a little more careful, because you could end up getting into maybe a little bit of hot water or some sort of serious dilemma. And if you made a cry for help, no one would respond. No one would hear you. Because if people dive below the surface, they're going to see other people doing absolutely terrible things. And you don't want to be involved with that, Pisces. That's just stay on the surface and take your notes and see what story unfolds by the end of October. Okay, thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks for putting up for my little illness the last couple of weeks. Your notes were very nice. I appreciate that. And so you can subscribe to my website on my Karen Campbell YouTube channel, and you can read the blog on my website and see the show on my website, StarbornInstitute.org. So until next week, I'll be seeing you. Bye.